Do you love scrappy quilts? Or maybe you've not made one before and this is your first attempt. I'm excited to share this with you. I have 5 of my favorite tips that will surely result in the most stunning scrappy quilt you've ever made. You are going to love this. I'm Leah Louise from Inspired Quilting by Leah Louise, and these are techniques I use in all my quilting projects, but they work especially well for scrappy quilts. They're not hard. They're basic understanding of how to handle your fabric and colors and balance and putting it all together. You don't want to miss this. There's a lot of information that's going to make your next quilt become a real beauty. It's always fun to see what you can find in your scrap pile, and I have a bunch of little rectangles here that I'm going to make a quilt with, and I want to show you what we're going to do. But you'll notice a lot of these are really dark, and I want to add some accents, some contrast, and just kind of liven this up. So the absolute number one step you want to take when you're making a scrappy quilt is to ensure that you are creating contrast. If everything looks the same, everything's dark or light or looks like it's all the same color, you're missing contrast. You need lighter, brighter, darker colors. You need some prints, maybe some graphics. Mix and match everything that you have and bring in some different levels of color, a different hue. If you have a purple fabric, you want it in light, medium, and dark. And if you do that with a few of your fabrics throughout your quilt, you are going to be amazed at the change you'll see. Don't be afraid to experiment with a few of these different ideas and mixing up your colors with different prints and different designs, because it's really going to add interest to your quilt, and that will make it stand out. Watch and see how I do that here. This up. So I will take the light ones and I'm going to take the dark ones and sort of do a different layout with each. And what I've decided to go with is some black and white fabric, because that's really going to offset these colors well. And I will put my lightest fabrics with the black and my darkest fabrics with the white. And I'm going to need a total of 40 and 40. So let me go ahead, count these out, and grab some pieces. We're going to start sewing. Of the 40 pieces that we have, 10 of them we are going to sew in pairs like this. Now this is obviously hasn't been trimmed. I have some of these that need to be cut exactly to size, but I'm going to put these side by side to get my squares. And that's the first 10. Then the second, let's see, the next group is 30. I'm going to sew them this way. So we have 10 side by side and we have 30 end to end. And I'm going to do that for both of these. So while I'm sewing this, I want to show you how I sorted through all my scraps. Today I'm going to be making a scrappy quilt that I'm sure all of you are familiar with. Many are calling it the potato chip quilt or the potato chip block. And they do that, or they call it that, because it's a quilt block you can't just make one of. And I found that this quilt pattern was actually published in 2010, and it was designed by Jo Parrott. And I just want to give her a shout out and let her know how much we love this quilt pattern. It's called Scrappy Rectangles, and it was originally published in her book, as I said, in 2010. And the book was called, let me see, Favorite Traditional Quilts, or Favorite Traditional Quilts Made Easy. And it's a book of all her different scrappy quilts. And there are a couple in there that are wonderful. And I'll put a link below if you want to take a look at it. It is available on Amazon. But then a couple years later, it was also republished in a larger book called The Big Book of Scrappy Quilts. So I just want to make sure she gets some credit for this great quilt block. And it's a wonderful quilt. It's an easy quilt. And I'm going to show you how I make it. But if you're looking for something even easier, before we get into this quilt, I'm going to show you another couple ideas here that are super simple. Well, this has been quite an adventure in fabric. I have it everywhere. But I just wanted to show you something real quick. You can make your strips into double strips like this, into an easy square, and all you need are 2 strips, and we're going to make a quilt just out of this. Now, the one I'm doing today is more involved, but if you want to just do it quick and you have strips, sew 2 together, cut them across to make them square. And in this case, if they're 2.5-inch squares, you want to cut them at 4.5. But look at what you can do. You can put them side by side. Now, they don't have to be, alternating in the same color. You can put blue with all these colors and, just line these up and put them in here. And then, of course, you can go in different directions. So there's just a multitude of things. I'll link this above and show you the tutorial on how to do this one. But then check it out this way. Oh my goodness, don't you love the cave facets? So pretty. And then a batik background. Same thing. It's just this simple block, and I've already lost it. Here it is. and it's just, 2 little strips sewn together, and look at what a beautiful quilt you can make. Now, if you're going super scrappy and you don't have big enough pieces, you're using narrow strips. Remember, I told you I don't throw those narrow strips away. Check this out. Oh my gosh, I love this quilt. And so I took some 2.5-inch pieces and I put narrow pieces, and I made this equal a square. And then I added an extra little rail on the end so it offset everything. This too, I'll show you the video. This is such an awesome quilt. I love the way it looks. Don't those stripes just, they're fabulous. Okay, so back to the video. This was just a little segue because I was digging through fabric and I found these and I thought, yes, I need to show how this can, this simple block can become a quilt as eye-catching as these. I mean, I don't want to say elaborate. They're not difficult to make, but a simple block can go such a long, long ways. Well, we are in for an adventure today. If you ever know somebody who buys a comforter, the big comforter and pillows and the shams and all that, keep the bag. Look at how wonderful this is for holding scraps. I love it because I can see what's in here. Now, on the other hand, it holds a lot. And when the day comes that you have to sort through it, you may regret having used it. But this is fabric, years worth of some scraps that I've tucked away. When I started my channel, I was doing a lot of different kinds of quilts and getting newer fabrics because a lot of these go back. Oh my goodness. I started buying my fat quarters back in 2000, and many of these prints go back that far. I was using exclusively batiks and have some wonderful fabrics. So I'm going to go through this, and I'm going to, oh, here's one of my favorites. And see, here's the other thing. When I go through fabrics like this, I find some that I really like, and I think, oh gosh, what can I do with that? I remember this quilt, I remember that. So what I'm going to do is just start pulling things together. Like, see here, this was probably either a binding or a trim somewhere, and I do my bias. I still do that. What I'm going to start with are strips, and I want 2.5-inch. Now this is only 2.25, so I'm not going to take that, but a lot of these are going to be the full 2.5, and I'm going to start with that, and we'll just kind of see where it takes us. So I will pull through some of this, and I'll just have my little nifty ruler here to make sure, and I'm just going to set it aside in piles, and as I get it, I'll put it over there, and then once I see what I have, I'm going to know what I can do with it. So it'll kind of depend on the colors and how much I have. I know there's going to be a lot. Now, the other thing is, there are a lot of big pieces or semi-big pieces in here that I can use to cut, maybe some charm squares or make some fun half-square triangles, things like that. Now see, this looks like a 5-inch piece right here. What is that? Okay, it's 5.5. So I could cut some 2.5-inch strips out of that. So I may keep these bigger pieces just over here for now. And that's what I'm going to do. So I just wanted you to kind of see what I'm tackling here. And some of these look like 2.5 inch. Yep. And there we are. So there's some small ones, there's some big ones. You know, I have some ideas for the small ones too. Oh my goodness. I think that'll be a lot of fun, but just look at all these. Oh, this is such fun. All right, so I'm going to spend the rest of the afternoon doing this. I'll check in a time or two. Oh, look, here's a piece from a quilt that I made. And that looks like a charm square. Actually, it would have been cut at 5.5 because it's finished at 5. And these are like 3-inch strips. So I have no idea what that was. But palm trees, this was my island time. These are in coral prints. I made a ton of island quilts. I loved it. Okay, moving on. Time to get busy. I'm going to sort through some fabrics and I will check back in with you when I have a pile to work with. So I spent a little over an hour going through my pile, just digging and finding pieces, and I continue to find little things that I think I can use in one way or another. Like this is my 2.5. I missed this one. So as I go through it over time, I'm going to find more pieces that I can use. But for now, I've emptied this out by about half. It may not look like it, but all the big pieces are out. Everything in here is 2 inches or under. And then that will be set aside and used for something else. Some of them are pieced together, and I can decide what I'm going to do with that later. But for right now, I have a lot of fabric to work with, and I'm going to set this aside. But let me show you what I pulled out of this bag. It's only recently that I've begun calling my Scrappy quilts just that, Scrappy quilts. For me, they've always been called stash quilts because I'm using fabrics that I already have and they're tucked away and I pull them out and I use them. When I hear Scrappy quilts, I think of odds and ends of little pieces that don't really go together well, and I'm just putting it together to make a quilt. And that's fine if that's what you want your ultimate end goal to be. But I want to use my fabrics to their best advantage. And the way to do that is take a look at all your fabrics together. When you see your fabrics that you've gathered to make your Scrappy quilt, does it look like it's just too busy and there's too much going on and you can't see one print for another? The best way to resolve that is to create a very simple color scheme. Look at that group of fabric. One color is going to stand out. Chances are it's your favorite color because you probably use it in all your quilts. Therefore, you have a lot of scraps with that. You want to include a bit of that color in every block. Maybe light, maybe dark, maybe medium. Maybe there'll be a little of it in one print, or maybe there'll be a solid block in another. By combining that color in all your quilt blocks, you're creating continuity. It is a way to balance out your quilt, to mix all those different pieces together. And if you have prints that have a little bit of that color, that's going to help tie it together as well. This even works if you're going with a monochromatic color scheme. If everything's going to be the same color, you need to go with the highs and lows, with the brights and the darks, but you want to bring in some vibrant colors, or maybe even an accent. Pick a color that works with the monochromatic scheme you're going with and use a little bit of that here and there. Maybe not a piece of fabric by itself, but include that color in some of the prints. I've done that with my blue quilts, and I add all sorts of chartreuse kind of colors, and they look absolutely wonderful. You will find that having a simple color scheme will help you to create a beautiful quilt. Here's the pile of 2.5-inch strips that I came up with. Some of them were more like, 2 3/4 to 3 inches, but I'm going to cut everything down to 2.5. And then I will make some, scrappy projects out of this, not unlike you would a jelly roll. And I have some specific ideas I'm going to show you. Now, then I found small pieces that are cut like this. And these are pretty much half charm squares, 2.5 by 5. Some of them, though, are only 4.5 inches. but that's okay because I have a plan for that too. So these are all in that same size grouping, and then I found some 2.5-inch squares. So I put the small pieces together. This I can cut some small pieces out of, so that's just sort of tucked in here because it kind of fits with that size group. Then these are pieces that are smaller than a charm square, and they can be, you know, just multiple. Oh, here's one. I can use that as a 2.5-inch. So I can put that over here. But there's a number of just small pieces, and most of them are square to small rectangles. And again, you know, some sort of a scrappy project I can use there. Now, some of these little ones I left in the bag. This is one that just happened to fall out. Probably not going to do anything with that anytime soon. That's when I get really desperate. Oh, here's the big piece. I had gone and I made one of these, and just for fun, I made a border on a wall hanging, and these finish at 3/4 of an inch, so it was a 1.5-inch square. Oh my goodness, I wouldn't make a whole quilt this way, but it is fun to do. So I have these pieces, so these are my small pieces, but look at how much yardage I found in there. Oh my goodness. So these are less than a fat quarter. These are fat quarters that got cut and for whatever reason got thrown in the bag. A lot of this fabric is when I moved. You may or may not know I lived on an island for 15 years, and then when we were leaving, I had to pack everything up. And so a lot of things were combined together just for convenience in order to get it packed away. Now, I have to deal with it at this point. I've sat on a lot of this for a few years, and I just want to go through, and I'm kind of on a roll with Scrappy quilts right now. There's so many things you can do. And what I'll start with here is cutting 10-inch squares, and then 5-inch squares, and then 2.5-inch strips. Those are my go-tos. And other than that, they'll go back in that bag, and I will decide later what I'm going to do. But look at all this fabric. Oh my goodness. There's an awful lot in here. One thing you'll notice is there's a lot of dark fabric. I love the bright and bold colors, and obviously I pull those out and use them more than I use these. So whatever quilt I make is going to need to be a contrast of bright and dark, or what do I want to say, kind of light and dark maybe, but I'm going to have to kind of come up with some other fabrics to mix with these so that I don't get an all over dark quilt. Like, I mean, some of the golds are good, colors like this, but even these in the 2.5-inch strips are more on the dark side. And then another way to manage a lot of different fabrics is to create balance. And there's a number of ways you can do that. One of the easiest ways is to add some solid blocks, solid colors that are going to help the transition between your fabrics so that you don't have too much busyness, you know, seam to seam to seam, and all you see is all this, you know, print going across your quilt. By putting in some solids or near solids like watercolors, that can really help sort of blend along as you go across the quilt. Another idea is to try a different print. If all your prints are on the small side, try some larger prints, because a larger print, when it's cut small, is going to look more like a solid. Small prints that are tight together and lots of lines and curves and whatever the case may be can really demand a lot of attention. But if you have a larger print that's cut into the small size of a Scrappy quilt, it's going to be more blendable, and that's going to help to create balance in your quilt. Now, if you're finding that you just have a lot going on and you're having a hard time managing it, make your blocks and put a sashing between them. make a lattice. Use maybe a 1-inch strip of color or solid or something that works in that particular situation, and that's going to break up all the blocks so that it's not so overwhelming. And you'll see that in a lot of Scrappy quilts. Balance is really helpful in a quilt, and that way you're going to have a great aesthetic and everybody's going to love it. So I have done a lot of black and white quilting, and I love the fabrics. And I pulled these together because I enjoy doing the contrast of black and white pieced together in a quilt block. So I have a lot to work with here, but I just want you to see that this all came out of the scrap bag. And there's still more there, but by going through what you have and determining how you can use it, what are the sizes you use most of the time? That's what you want to focus on. That's how you want to divide your fabric up. And if it's in larger pieces, then either use it that way, piece it together to make a quilt back, or cut it down to be the size that you will use on a regular basis. That's how to use up your fabric. When we're going through our scrap pile, sometimes there's a fabric or two that always remains there. For some reason, we don't ever use it. Maybe it's kind of a funky print, or we just don't like it. The secret here is start small. Cut it into a smaller piece, and the colors that you really love, cut those into bigger pieces, or figure out a way to put them together that the unusual fabric that you're trying to use blends into something that you really like. If you have two fabrics with a common color and put that seam with that color, then they sort of blend together better. But using something that is a little questionable in a smaller size or a smaller amount is going to make you feel a whole lot better, and you'll get to use that fabric. I know there are fabrics I look at and think, what was I thinking? But I usually find a way to work it out and find a place for it. The key is to embrace the imperfections and just make a wonderful quilt, enjoy it, and everything you do within that quilt is going to create a story, and that will make it even more memorable. I've been busy sewing, and I want to catch you up on where we are. These are the pieces end to end, half of them. There's 30 here that have the white fabrics, and then these 30 have the black fabrics. Now, we also had a total of 20 that we were sewing the long sides together. This is with the 10 that were with white fabric, and then there's another 10 that was with the black. And once we're at this point, what we're going to do is take the black fabric, because we used white already, so we're going to put a black fabric in here, and then we'll put one more piece right there. So this is the next step. We're going to use whatever the opposite of this is over here, and then add another color strip, another rectangle. Now, let me show you how these turned out. This is what it looks like first. So I have a white strip here, so I added the black strip. And I went through each of these, adding those pieces on, and then I press them. And once I have this finished, I add a color piece, and I put that on the opposite end. So you can see here, I have my black with the white center square, and here I have the black center square with the white on the end. And both of these then will have the color strip on the bottom. Now, do you see where this is going? Because then once we get here, kind of tuck this in and see that it's all pressed, and I just press everything in one direction. I do that just because it makes it easier to sew. Lastly, and most importantly, is that you have fun making your quilt. Try some different layout designs. When your blocks are complete, think about how you want to put them together. When you were looking through the fabric, you probably had lots of ideas of how it would look and how it would finish and what you're anticipating to see your quilt become. Use those creative ideas. Let your creativity lead you in how you're going to put this together. Is it going to be a colorized quilt and that it lays out in an ombre pattern or like a rainbow? Or do you have different blocks that could be divided into groups? Maybe some are specific colors or some have particular graphics, and you can maybe alternate those throughout the quilt to create a really nice balance. Whatever it is you do, have fun, enjoy it. This is a quilt that's going to last a very, very long time. You always want to be able to look at that quilt and smile thinking back of how much fun you had making it. Let's go ahead and take a look at this one. And oh, this is pretty. I just love going through and seeing all the different patterns, how they come together. I like this one with the circles. Let's play with that. All right, so I need to, this is white, so I need to add a black strip. And I'm not going to want it over here. I'll want it on this side. So let's see what colors I have that I can add that's in my black collection. I don't have, oh, here we go, some darker colors, because these are kind of a lot of pastels. Now, I can go this way or I can go this way. And there's enough contrast there that that's going to work out fine. And I kind of like, though, that the pinks are crossing over here. So that's kind of a fun one for me. And then on the light side, so now I'm going to need a white piece. And let's go with, oh my goodness, it shouldn't be this difficult. This is why scrappy quilts are hard for me because I don't do scrappy grab and go, you know. I like to place things and have a little bit of, I don't want to say coordination, but just carry the colors a bit. It works for me. However you do it, you find your way that works best for you, and then you're going to enjoy your quilting that much more. So once I do this and I get all my blocks ready, there's one more step, and I think you can probably guess what that's going to be. I just have to show you that my mat is 6 feet from side to side, and I have this little, 18-inch, maybe 24-inch circle that I'm working in. Oh my goodness, I have pulled every fabric I could find out, but these blocks are going to be gorgeous. All right, let me get back in so we can look at this closer. All right, so you know the mess is there, but you can't see it. That's the kind of mess I like. It's tucked away where I can't see it. Okay, so moving on. All right, stay on task. We need to get these blocks done. We're getting so close. So what we're going to do now is put a second row on this. So we have our center, we have our first row, and we're going to put the second row. This is kind of what I go by. Since I have white here, I'm going to want to put a black up here and do my white down on this end. So let's say I want to take, this is my white, and I could put that right there. Ooh, yeah, that's some great color. And then do black. Now that's kind of close in pattern. See how those are kind of close? I just prefer to go this way, I think. All right, now I like that. Now you see how the whites and the blacks just sort of spread out throughout the block, and I think this is what works out so well. Okay, I'm going to turn this a little bit since we're going to be going this direction with the block. You can see it better. All right, so I brought my white down here, and then I have a black, make sure I get the wrong side down, and I have the black up on this end. Now again, I can put it here if I want, and it really doesn't matter. There's no right or wrong. The idea is you just, get alternating whites and blacks in there. But this is the other fun thing about this block. Let's say you wanted to use say greens. Green is your favorite color. And so you're going to make all these blocks varying shades of green and then fill it in with other colors. That's the same difference. It doesn't matter where it goes as long as it all balances out together. And, if I had all my, black squares like this, and then I had another one here, the black is going to be focal. Now, if that's your focal color, if that's the blue or the green that you want your quilt to really show off, then something like this works out great. So don't get hung up on details of that nature. Put your quilt together, put the squares, the rectangles where you like them, and have it fit and look the way you enjoy it, because this is your quilt. This is going to be a quick finish now. You see, we're going to put these pairs on. I have a number of blocks here I've got ready to go. Let me get these finished, and I'm going to show you what's next. I think you probably know. And check this out. This is so awesome. And see, everything is made with these pairs. So these are singles that we put in on our double-sided piece. Then we put pairs on each side and pairs this way. Now, a pair is not going to fit right here. What we're going to have to do is come in and add another rectangle. And so, again, you do it the way you want. Do you want to put it there? Do you want to put it here? I kind of liked this being right there, but that was a bit more blue than I want. Then I looked up here. I've got a blue in each corner. It all is going to work. And, don't be quite as, what do I want to say? Anal as me? Is that the way I want to say it? Probably not, but there's some truth there. and just, make it work. And I know I keep saying that, but we can make this so difficult, but it doesn't need to be. There's just some wonderful, wonderful fabrics we can work with, and we want to make a beautiful quilt. And I'm going to, whoops, I don't want those side by side, so let me go with this one. And I think I'll put that up here, and then I'll find a kind of a, there's some kind of purpley blue. So that would look good. So now I'm going to go ahead to my machine, and I will add these pieces on, and I'm going to do the same here. And there's another one. So let me show you how this looks once everything is together. Look at this. Aren't these wonderful? Oh my goodness, these blocks are so fantastic. And I love the way all these colors just work together. It wraps around, but yet you don't really see a specific pattern. There isn't something that jumps out and, where you see triangles or stripes or something like that. But they just are a lot of fun. And everyone is so different. Now, the way I'm going to put this together is you want to make sure that your side pieces go alternating. So if I were to put this next to this, I have seams that match. If I go this way, my seams don't match. Now, because I'm a bit haphazard in the way I put these together, I may have situations where these blocks may not always go one side, one vertical, and that's okay. I haven't quite figured it out that far. Once I get more of these blocks finished and put together, then I'll know. But because I started everything pretty much the same way, I think I should have most everything going in a similar direction. But you look at this, you don't even know that's the center of the square. And I guess I'm just really focusing on this because I don't want you to get hung up because there's 18 pieces in a block. That sounds overwhelming, and it sounds like a lot to manage and control. But don't let it control you. You just have fun with fabric, have fun with color, and make these beautiful blocks. Oh my goodness, I can't wait to show you how all of these turn out. So let me go do some sewing. I've got some work to do. And check out these beautiful colors. These blocks are such fun. They look gorgeous. And all that color spread out is really fantastic. And even though, a number of these replicate, they're duplicated throughout the quilt, it's okay. You don't really see specific fabrics. You see an overall wash of color, and it's beautiful. I love it. So these are the 4 that I have finished. I have 16 left to go. And once they're all done, I'll put this quilt together and I'll do another video finishing it and getting the quilting done. Oh my gosh, this has been such fun. Thank you for being here with me today. I have enjoyed this so much, and I hope you have too.